Two little old ladies, Edna and Ida, were sitting on a park bench outside the local town hall where a flower show was taking place. Edna, the shorter one, leaned over and said, "Life is so boring. We never have any fun anymore. For $10, I'd take my clothes off and streak through that stupid flower show." Ida, without hesitation, held up a $10 bill. "You're on." Edna slowly fumbled her way out of her clothes and, completely naked, streaked, albeit as fast as an old lady can, through the entrance of the flower show. Outside, Ida soon heard a huge commotion inside, followed by loud applause and whistling. Finally, Edna emerged, smiling, surrounded by a cheering, clapping crowd. Ida asked, "What happened?" "I won $1,000 for first prize in Best Ride Arrangement." It was an extremely hot day, and a man was desperate to take a dip in a nearby lake. He hadn't brought his swimming trunks, but no one was around, so he figured it didn't matter. He undressed and waded into the cool water. After enjoying a few minutes of swimming, he noticed a pair of elderly ladies walking along the shore toward him. Panicking, he quickly climbed out of the water, grabbed a nearby bucket, and held it in front of his private parts, hoping to cover himself. As the ladies got closer, they giggled. One of the ladies then said, "You know, I have a special gift. I can read minds." The man, embarrassed, asked, "Really? You can tell what I'm thinking." "Absolutely," she replied. "Right now, I bet you think the bucket you're holding has a bottom." A father and son went hunting together for the first time. The father said, "Stay here and be very quiet. I'll be across the field." A few hours later, the father heard a blood-curdling scream and rushed back to his son. "What's wrong?" the father asked. "I told you to be quiet." The boy, bless his heart, answered, "Well, I was quiet when the snake slithered across my feet. I was quiet when the bear breathed down my neck. I didn't move a muscle when the skunk climbed over my shoulder. I held my breath when the wasp stung me. I didn't cough when I swallowed a gnat. I didn't scratch or curse when the poison oak started itching. But when the two squirrels crawled up my pant legs and said, 'Should we eat them here or take them with us?' Well, I guess I just panicked." Little Johnny was always late for school, and what made it worse was that he always had an outrageous excuse. The teacher was fed up with his tall tales and reported it to the principal. The principal said, "Send Johnny to me the next time he's late. I'll tell him a lie so big that he'll never lie again." The next day, Johnny arrives 2 hours late. "I was 2 hours early today, so I had time to fish in the pond on my way to school," Johnny says. "I caught a 17-pound trout and had to take it home. If I hadn't cleaned and frozen it, my mom would have been mad. That's why I'm late." The teacher, exasperated, takes Johnny to the principal's office and explains the story. The principal listens and then says, "Well, on my way to school today, I was walking through the park when I heard something behind me. I turned around and was shocked to see a giant grizzly bear, 24 feet tall, with 6-inch fangs. It was going to eat me. Just then, a little dog came running out from the bushes, jumped up, and attacked the bear. The little dog killed the bear and then ate the whole thing right in front of me. What do you think of that, Johnny?" Johnny thinks for a moment and then responds, "Oh yeah, that's my dog Sparky. That's his third bear this week." An Avon lady was delivering products in a high-rise building and was riding in the elevator. Suddenly, she felt the powerful urge to fart. Since no one else was in the elevator, she let it rip, and it was a real doozy. Just as the elevator stopped on the next floor, she quickly sprayed some Avon pine-scented spray to cover up the smell. The doors opened, and a man stepped in. Immediately, he wrinkled his nose. "Holy cow, what's that smell?" he exclaimed. "I don't smell anything, sir," the Avon lady replied. "What does it smell like to you?" The man paused, then grimaced. "Like someone crapped a Christmas tree." One day, a mother-in-law, frustrated with her daughter-in-law, said, "Shame on your life. It's been 7 years since you got married, and you've only had one child." The daughter-in-law, not one to back down, responded, "Well, even more shame on your son's life. If I had depended only on him, we wouldn't even have this one." Patty sat excitedly on the plane, eagerly awaiting his drink. The air stewardess came by with the trolley and asked, "Would you like something to drink?" "I'll have a whiskey, thanks," replied Patty. "No ice." She poured his drink and then turned to the man sitting next to him, who was wearing a turban. "Anything for you, sir?" "I'd rather be taken by a dozen brazen women than let liquor touch my lips," the man declared, scowling. Patty looked at him, stunned for a moment, then handed his drink back to the stewardess. "Me too, ma'am. I didn't know that was an option." Decades ago, two Irish nuns arrived in the USA by boat. One says to the other, "I hear that people in this country actually eat dogs." "Really?" Her companion replies, "Well, if we're going to live in America, we might as well do as the Americans do." Nodding, the Mother Superior points to a hot dog vendor. "Let's try that," she says, and they walk over to the cart. "2 dogs, please," says the Mother Superior. The vendor gladly hands them 2 hot dogs wrapped in foil. Eagerly, the nuns hurry over to a bench to unwrap their dogs. The Mother Superior is the first to open hers. She stares at it for a moment, her face turning red. She leans over to the other nun and whispers cautiously, "Which part did you get?" A private school recently faced a unique problem. A number of 12-year-old girls had started using lipstick and would apply it in the bathroom. That wasn't an issue, but after applying their lipstick, they'd press their lips to the mirror, leaving dozens of little lip prints. Every night, the maintenance man would clean them off, but the next day the girls would repeat the same thing. The principal decided something needed to be done. She called all the girls to the bathroom, where she was joined by the maintenance man. She explained that the lip prints were causing a major problem for the custodian, who had to clean the mirrors every night. To show the girls how much effort was involved, she asked the maintenance man to demonstrate. He took a long-handled squeegee, dipped it in the toilet, and began cleaning the mirror with it. Since then, there haven't been any more lip prints on the mirrors. Teachers, huh? There's a difference between teaching and truly educating. A man walks into a restaurant with a full-grown ostrich behind him. As he sits down, the waitress approaches and asks for their orders. The man says, "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke," and turns to the ostrich. "What would you like?" "I'll have the same," replies the ostrich. A short while later, the waitress returns with their order. "That'll be $6.40, please," she says. The man reaches into his pocket and pulls out the exact change to pay. The next day, the man and the ostrich return. The man says, "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke," and the ostrich replies, "I'll have the same." Once again, the man pulls out the exact change to pay. This routine continues until one evening when they enter the restaurant and the waitress asks, "The usual?" "No, it's Friday night," the man replies. "I'll have a steak, baked potato, and a salad." "Same for me," says the ostrich. A short time later, the waitress returns with their order. "That'll be $12.62, she says. The man reaches into his pocket and once again pulls out the exact change. The waitress, unable to contain her curiosity, asks, "Excuse me, sir, how do you always manage to come up with the exact change?" "Well," the man says, "a few years ago I was cleaning out my attic when I found an old lamp. When I rubbed it, a genie appeared and granted me 2 wishes. My first wish was that whenever I had to pay for something, I could just put my hand in my pocket, and the exact amount of money would always be there." "That's brilliant," says the waitress. "Most people would wish for $1 million or something, but you'll always have the right amount for whatever you need." "Exactly," the man replies. "Whether it's a gallon of milk or a Rolls Royce, the exact money is always there." The waitress then asks, "One more thing, sir. What's with the ostrich?" The man sighs, pauses for a moment, then answers, "My second wish was for a tall chick with long legs who agrees with everything I say." A biker walks into a chemist's shop and asks to speak to a male pharmacist. The woman behind the counter responds, "I'm the only pharmacist here, and my sister and I own the shop, so there are no men working here." She asks if she can help him with something, but the biker insists that it's something he'd be more comfortable discussing with a male pharmacist. The woman reassures him, "I'm completely professional. Whatever it is, you can trust that I will handle it with the utmost professionalism." Reluctantly, the biker agrees and says, "This is a bit embarrassing, but I have a permanent erection. It's causing me a lot of problems and extreme embarrassment, and I was wondering if you could give me something for it." The pharmacist nods and says, "Just a moment. I'll consult with my sister." When she returns, she says, "We've discussed it, and after careful consideration, the best we can offer is 1/3 ownership of the shop, a company car, 5 home-cooked dinners a week, and $3,000 a month in living expenses." When George Washington was crossing the Delaware River with his troops, there were 33 soldiers in Washington's boat. It was a dark and stormy night, and the water was tossing them about. Washington ordered Corporal Peters, remember this name, to stand at the front of the boat with a lantern to help guide their way. Through driving rain and freezing cold, Corporal Peters swung the lantern back and forth to light their path. But then, a gust of wind and a wave hit, knocking Corporal Peters and the lantern into the Delaware River. Washington and his men searched for nearly an hour but couldn't find the corporal. They all felt terrible, as he was a favorite among them. Eventually, they made it to the other side, wet and exhausted. Washington rallied the troops, telling them they must press on. About an hour later, one of the men said, "General, I see lights ahead." They trudged toward the lights and came upon a large house hidden in the forest. Unknown to them, it was a house of ill repute, serving travelers in need. Washington knocked on the door, and to his surprise, a beautiful woman answered, smiling at the sight of so many men. Washington was the first to speak. "Madam, I am General George Washington, and these are my men. We are tired, wet, and exhausted, and we desperately need warmth and comfort." The woman glanced at the men and smiled broadly. "General, you've come to the right place. We can certainly offer warmth and comfort. How many men are there?" Washington replied, "Well, madam, there are only 32 of us here, without Peters." John asks his wife, Mary, what she wants to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. "Would you like a new mink coat?" he asks. "Not really," Mary replies. "How about a new Mercedes sports car?" he suggests. "No," she responds. "Some beautiful new jewelry, then?" he asks, growing a bit frustrated. "Nah," she shrugs. "What about a new vacation home in the country?" he persists. Again, she shakes her head. "No, thanks." John, now getting exasperated, asks, "Well, what do you want?" "I want a divorce," Mary says. John sighs and says, "Sorry, I wasn't planning on spending that much." An Indian walks into a cafe with a shotgun in one hand, pulling a male buffalo with the other. He walks up to the counter and says, "Want coffee?" The waiter replies, "Sure, Chief, coming right up." The waiter quickly serves him a tall mug of coffee. The Indian drinks it down in one gulp, turns and blasts the buffalo with the shotgun, causing a huge mess. He then walks out without saying another word. The next morning, the Indian returns, shotgun in hand, pulling yet another male buffalo. He walks up to the counter and says, "Want coffee?" The waiter, looking bewildered, says, "Whoa, Tonto, we're still cleaning up from yesterday. What was all that about?" The Indian smiles proudly and says, "Training for a position in the United States Congress. Come in, drink coffee, shoot the bull, leave a mess for others to clean up, and disappear for the rest of the day." An old, tired-looking dog wandered into the yard. From his collar and well-fed belly, I could tell he had a home. He followed me inside, settled onto the couch, and fell fast asleep. After an hour, he got up and went to the door, so I let him out. The next day, he came back, repeated his routine on the couch, and slept for another hour. This continued for several weeks. Curious, I pinned a note to his collar. "Every afternoon, your dog comes to my house for a nap." The next day, the dog returned with a different note pinned to his collar. "He lives in a home with 4 children. He's just trying to catch up on his sleep. Can I join him tomorrow?" An old blind Marine accidentally stumbles into an all-girl biker bar. He makes his way to a bar stool and orders a shot of Jack Daniels. After sitting quietly for a while, he suddenly calls out to the bartender, "Hey, you want to hear a blonde joke?" The entire bar goes silent, and in a deep, husky voice, the woman next to him says, "Before you tell that joke, I think it's only fair that you know 5 things. The bartender is a blonde girl with a baseball bat. The bouncer is a blonde girl. I'm a 6-foot-tall, 175-pound blonde woman with a black belt in karate. The woman sitting next to me is blonde and a professional weightlifter. The lady to your right is blonde and a professional wrestler. And now, think about it. Do you still want to tell that blonde joke? The blind Marine thinks for a moment, then shakes his head and mutters, "No, not if I have to explain it 5 times."